was like looking at the doors of hell opening up to you.
Bomb just went off inside here. It's pretty bad. We got a lot of firemen down.
There has been an explosion on the fire scene.
It happened fast.
I'm sending everybody I got.
I remember seeing everything go up like this.
I don't know what is going on.
I saw debris coming at me.
The rest home has been seriously damaged. We have many people down.
And I knew I was trapped.
Oh my God, people's houses are on fire.
And right then and there, I thought Mom was dead.
It was like a war zone.
Man, this is helicopter PHI Med 6 showing 5 minutes out.
The only way it has been expressed to me is there was a lot of angels in West that night.
We had to get school started. We had to do what was best for the kids of West.
Houses came up. You saw these people, you know, their spark came back.
We're going to be strong and our neighborhood's going to be strong.
It happened, but we're going to rebuild and we're going to be back better than we were before.
On April the 17th of 2013, what seemed like a normal call came into the West Volunteer Fire Department. But within 20 minutes, life in the small Central Texas town was forever changed.
12 first responders and 3 residents were killed. Hundreds more were hurt. Homes, schools, office buildings were destroyed when the West Fertilizer plant exploded.
Now, 1 year later, wounds have turned to scars as the city continues to heal.
Through the eyes of those who lived through it, we hope you gain a better understanding of exactly what happened that devastating night last April and how the community of West has managed to pick up the pieces and move forever forward.
Central Texas morning, it's springtime with temperatures right now in the mid-70s. We'll have a cold front coming through late tonight.
West is a pretty special little community anyway, the Czech heritage.
Got that straight.
It's almost like a piece of a Norman Rockwell photo.
Good, caring, giving community.
Your neighbors are your friends and your friends are your neighbors.
And he rebelled. You talking about some die-hard people.
Yeah, it was a normal day. We had the students were 2 weeks from graduating.
That day, I think the page went off sometime, 7:15, 7:30ish.
One of their mills is on fire. There's heavy smoke coming out of the top of it.
As soon as they get that page, and I know these guys, they got here as quickly as they could. They came in here. As they come in, they probably opened one of the bay doors. Ran right to their bunker gear, got it on. Doug, you take this one. Joey, you take this one. Bob, you take that truck. And they got in the truck, as many guys as they were, and they took off, and they went right directly into harm's way.
Well, I remember the smoke, and I made my way over to the fertilizer plant. I saw it fully engulfed from the side that I was on, from Reagan Street.
Have you made it over there yet?
When it first came in, it was just a normal fire. It wasn't that large.
Coming out of one of the buildings behind the fertilizer.
Everything seemed pretty normal leading up to that phone call that evening. Said that the fertilizer plant's on fire, and from what he could tell, there was no way we were going to be able to put it out. It was a normal day, and then certainly within an instant it became abnormal.
All of a sudden,
I remember seeing everything go up like this.
I thought it was an earthquake.
Yes, ma'am. Do you need for us to respond up there? We do have a ladder truck, but I just heard something about an explosion up there now.
Not being in the military, I've never seen anything like that. I never felt anything like that. And most people in this area that haven't.
9102, all units on scene. They need to load up and get out of there right now.
I was just laying there. I was inside, and first thing I heard was all that wreck.
The sound that Hollywood will never be able to replicate.
There has been an explosion on the fire scene. There are firefighters down at this time. Again, there has been an explosion on the fire scene. There are firefighters down.
I was coming up the road because the smoke was heavy. I was going slow. And before I actually heard the explosion, it looked like a a tornado, saw debris coming at me. Within a split second, I reached over and hit the emergency air brakes and hit the floor. My 12-year-old son was with me, so I laid on top of him. Then I heard the explosion as it lifted the fire truck up off the ground and slammed it back down.
I literally watched the fertilizer plant blow up in my face. It rip open and see the fire coming out at us.
I remember watching things go, like fire and big things flying through the air.
Everything just fell down on me. And then you heard the blast. The stuff fell before the sound got to you.
What it was like looking at the doors of hell opening up to you.
I guessed it was a plane crash.
Is that a plane?
I don't know. I grew up in New Jersey, right across the Hudson River from Manhattan, and was living up there when 9/11 happened, and never, expected to see anything like that again, and certainly not in West. I live all the way down in. I live all the way in town. What happened?
Everything blew up.
I thought something fell on my house. I mean, I live down past the Family Dollar.
Too. You okay, but oh my
God. Is that your kid?
No, it's my grandbaby. He was in the apartments.
Oh my God.
I couldn't see anything because my eyes were shut. My contacts had disintegrated in my eyes and I couldn't see anything. It's the scariest thing that has ever happened to me in my life. Not knowing if the boys were alive, if my friend was alive, not knowing if anybody was going to hear us. I didn't know. I didn't know if anybody was going to even rescue us.
Is she even home?
I don't know what is going on.
It was like I know what it was. I thought about a tornado, and no, it wasn't that. I didn't know what it was.
Just FYI, Hillcrest has been notified on standby. Air evac helicopter is down. We have back.
Got in his truck, went to the nursing home, and run into Mother's room. Well, he needed some help because that roof had fell in, and he looked, and there was a guy.
You talk about the Lord putting people in places where they belong. I don't know who the guy was. I still don't know who he was, don't know his name. And I asked him, would you help him? He said, sure.
Triage at the corner of...
We picked the wheelchair up over all the debris that was all over the floor, carried her out into the hallway.
From there, it was just mass chaos.
The rest home has been seriously damaged. We have many people down. Please respond.
School was on fire. People on the side of the road, cut up, bleeding. It was just like a war zone.
I'm getting you everybody I can. You have deputies, you have Bellmead Fire, you have EMS. I'm sending everybody I got.
61 Elmont, 1200 North Reagan. Be advised we do have 2 paramedics on the entity that can help out with triage. Inform, if you'll be at 1100 North Reagan at the West Middle School, it is on fire.
Very sad. I had opened the doors in 2000 to that campus, and just seeing it go up in flames, it was very difficult, very sad.
We weren't prepared for. We didn't anticipate, but we struggled through it, especially when you got personal people you work with every day that are unaccounted for.
And especially early on, we knew we had fatalities among the firemen and the EMS.
I was actually searching for Joey. I went to Joey's house to find out. I heard that the fertilizer plant was on fire and it was going to explode. So I ran in my car to go see if Joey was actually at the fire and to be with my grandson.
Dad had done left after he said Mom's at home by herself, and right then and there I thought Mom was dead. I really thought, I was like, no, there's no way. What I just felt on the south side of town, there's no way. There's absolutely no way my mom's alive.
And I was under 2 sheets of plywood, and the brick from the side of the house had fallen on top of the plywood, and I couldn't lift it off.
I moved a few little debris, and surprisingly, Mom jumped up like a spring chicken.
Still scarred there, and there's scars all the way.
When I looked at the enormity of that cloud out the window and I felt the explosion, and I knew where it was located because I knew that the fertilizer plant was on fire, I knew deep down that there were going to be some significant injuries. And so, I mean, I'm trained in that kind of thing, and I just went. I mean, it wasn't like I had a conscious, well, should I go, should I not go? I mean, I just went.
The fear was all over. But those who wanted to provide support were able to come towards the nursing center and to the football field, and then eventually we took residents to the community center.
Most of the injuries were either to the face or the extremities, and you know, those were the most shocking, I mean, especially in people that you knew. And then just some blunt trauma injury to some of the nursing home patients. You know, but it's nothing I hadn't seen before, but it was just, you know, in a football field, you know, in your hometown, so it was a little unusual.
The thing that I won't ever get out of my head is the football field where the triage was occurring and the first waves of nursing home residents that were being brought through the gates. You know, we couldn't drive trucks up there, they couldn't get stretchers up there, so they were being hand carried by citizens and concerned community members, and a lot of those folks were already in a fragile state, and you know, were in bad shape, and they didn't really know what was going on.
And then as I was leaving in town, I came across one of our councilmen, asked him what was going on because I had little details at that time. And that's when he informed me that we had lost Joey, who was the city secretary at that time.
It's very devastating. You know, he was missing. We didn't know where he was. And you always have hope that you're going to find him. I just thought maybe they put him into a hospital and he didn't have ID on. Or that maybe he was in a ditch and he was fine. And the final knowing that he wasn't, was pretty devastating.
It was very difficult. He was not only my boss, but he was a really close friend. At first I think I was in shock and I didn't believe it. I think I knew that he would be there because he was always probably one of the first ones on scene whenever there was a fire. But hearing news like that, again, it was kind of like being in a dream, and nothing seemed like it was possible, that it was anything real.
Yeah, basically in addition to my clinic and my house, I lost the ambulance station, the nursing home I practice in, the assisted living that I'm president of the group that runs it, the helicopter station where my son works, about 70 or 80 houses. But things can be replaced. What can't be replaced are the 12 firemen and 3 other people that died. And that was very devastating because I knew all of them. I had trained the EMS people. There were 4 EMS people. I'd worked with the firemen fairly regularly, and I knew all of them, and that was the hardest loss, is the people.
I just started wandering around outside the community center, and when there was somebody that was scared, I would talk with them. If somebody was crying, I'd sit down and cry with them. And that went on for a few hours.
Can I send anybody to assist? We do have EMS en route.
10-4.
The night that this occurred, I was at home, already off duty, and I received a phone call from the patrol captain, Captain Steve Smith. And he said, "Chief, there has been some type of explosion up in West." And there was no urgency in his voice, no panic. I don't think he knew the devastation that was awaiting us when we arrived.
Our guys were there fast. I mean, they were on. We you know, the heart of our department. Those 5 guys. I mean, they were always at the station, quick and gone.
I got wood fire out on a fire.
I really don't remember a lot between the time that I paged out that 2nd Fire Department and them coming over the radio and saying,
Here, we need every ambulance we can get this way. A bomb just went off inside here. It's pretty bad. We got a lot of firemen down.
because you could just tell from his voice that it was bad.
Again, there has been an explosion. There are firefighters down.
The men that took that call took it at if 911 is correct, I think it was 7:29. And we had responders at the fire station at 7:32 or 7:33, and we were on site at 7:38. And it blew up at 7:50. So I'll take that response from our volunteer firemen over any paid fire department. That was a tremendous response, and they were dedicated people. Now, when they got there, they had 10 minutes to figure out what was going on. Obviously, as the records show, they were backing out, and it just blew up. I don't think they realized it would blow up that fast, and I don't think anybody did.
The explosion occurred, that changed everything, because the command structure that was on scene was impacted.
I went on in and I started finding firemen that had been injured, seeing if they were okay. I found Captain Mitchell. He was injured and he had powder all over him. I saw our Fire Chief George Norris. He was there and he was wandering around in a daze, and went past them. I found David Mailer, and he was okay, but he was kind of shredded up pretty bad. And then the EMS guys were there, and we were trying to, we kind of helped get Kenneth Matus out.
Your heart drops, because I knew that I'd probably had responders dead. You know, oh my God, how many people have I lost just in a second?
10-4, sir.
Hearing the radio traffic, I started seeing vehicles that were responding with their emergency equipment. But it wasn't until I got there that I could ever even imagine what the chaos that I was going to see. It was beyond anything that we could comprehend at the time.
So we're staying back right now until all this kind of clears up. We still have a lot of men.
I remember seeing an eerie glow over the town of West, from the fires burning, from the smoke in the air, from the football field lights glowing, and then the helicopters that were circling west. It was almost a surreal scene, kind of something you'd see in a movie of a city under siege.
It was just kind of overwhelming to see everything that had happened, because I expected hundreds of people to be trapped inside houses.
So I started immediately going to these houses and hollered for Mrs. Lesnitsky, Mrs. Rauschuer, Mrs. Perea, and I didn't get any response in those first 2 houses because they had got out watching what was going on, and they were out of the house. So when all the debris, the sheetrock and everything fell down, they didn't get hurt.
Explosion happened about an hour and a half prior to dark, so everything we were doing as far as searching each one of the residents was at nighttime, so that puts a bigger damper on us.
there started to be firefighters and EMS from all the surrounding neighboring towns, from all of the surrounding counties, and as far away as Dallas and the Metroplex.
We had more emergency personnel in town than we had total population of our little town.
I think the response was not only appropriate, but magnificent. From everywhere from the Austin area to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, tactical teams were here, whether it be rescue squads, fire suppression, safety and security. I think it was an awesome display of safety.
And what we were expecting as a disaster, it's right there. On the chemicals on that train, it would be derailed right here in town. That's what we practiced for. That's what we anticipated being a disaster, is a railroad derailment with no telling what kind of chemicals on that train, not the fertilizer plant.
This disaster, I was told by someone who literally wrote the textbook, has been examined under a microscope. And the consensus of everybody involved is we did an amazing job. That there should have been hundreds of fatalities and many more hundreds wounded than were.
If you look at the damage, we had 13 firemen that were on site that died, that perished, first responders. You had the gentleman from the apartment, and you had the older gentleman from the nursing home that died a couple of days later, 15 in all. 15 people. Out of the devastation that you saw there, and people saw, it's a miracle that more people weren't hurt, injured, or killed. And that was one of the first things when we were doing this, is we were looking for these people. We knew we were going to go into that nursing home. We were going to find a bunch of people. We knew it. We went in there 3 times with dogs, looking for these people, and they weren't there.
That day, and while the event was so tragic and there was such tragedy, that I believe that there was a reason more lives were probably saved than lost.
Obviously West has the Czech heritage as well, and that tends to be predominantly Catholic, so it's a large Catholic population, but there's also a large Baptist and other religious organizations, and it has helped. I mean, if you have comfort and solace in God, you know, anything is possible. And I think that's what the people of West believe in general, and it helps get them through day-to-day life.
It was just like any other day. It was a warm day, people were outside, some were in church when it happened. So I think God really helped us to make it not too, if not a lot of people, we could have lost a lot of lives.
And that's when it kind of hit that, you know, the hand of God's pretty strong. And you know, He did, you know, have a lot of people that are injured, hurt, cut, but they're going to live.
I just can't imagine. We are just so blessed that school was not in session. It could have been so much worse. I don't even want to think about it, because it just, you know, happening when it did was horrible enough. But at least there were not kids in that building, because I'm not sure, you know, what would have happened. It would have been a lot worse.
There could have been 200 people dead. If it had been 3 o'clock in the afternoon when the school was in session, you know, God knows what would have happened.
It's not just my story. Everybody has a story. A friend, she went back in the house and there was a big boulder in her recliner where if she had been sitting, if her kids hadn't called her out, she'd have been sitting in that recliner.
Just those few delays has saved my life, because if I would have went when I first got the call, or if I would have went straight to the scene without going to get my bunker gear, you know, I'd have been right there at the trucks with the rest of the guys. And, you know, just one of those things. It just, fate didn't want me at that point. God had another plan for me somewhere in there, I guess. So
we were at the right places at the right time. You know, Mom could have been in the living room. All the glass shrapnel would have just went into her. She was getting out, getting in her car. I mean, it was something else.
My cousin, he died in 1993, and my cousin was there the whole time until my firefighters got there. I mean, I still, to this day, feel so blessed to have had him in my life, and even afterwards, to have him knowing that he was there to protect us and to guide us through that. That he'll always be my angel, my guardian angel.
When I first saw my home that day, went to the back, the driveway, and on the patio, I had, of course, my table, my patio table, and sitting on that table was a ceramic statue of an angel, just untouched, unharmed, just sitting there. And that's just one memory, one vivid memory that I have, that, you know, God was with us, and you know, we were protected, even though it was such a disaster. You know, there's just many blessings that we knew that, you know, God was right there with us.
It was kind of, that's one of the first things I said when it blew up. You know, I asked God, I said, you know, why wasn't I there? Why did you save me? So anyway, we just never know. Everybody's got a story, you know. That was just, where was you at when it happened, you know?
The only way it has been expressed to me is there was a lot of angels in West that night, because we were all protected so many different ways.